Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo, broadcasting on TV1, the best place to have your breakfast, I dare say. And now that we've come to terms with the magnitude of the disaster that we had in terms of floods and vast tracts of our nation underwater, and hundreds of people, 200 and plus people who perished unfortunately, and several hundreds of thousands who were displaced, we can have a post-mortem, which is very essential if we are to learn what can be done and how to prepare in the future, and how not to depend only on private sector business houses, including the media and the generous public, to help out the government. And on that note, we have a social entrepreneur who's been rather vociferous critic of the performance or the non-performance of the disaster ministry, and in particular its leader, the Minister, Anura Yapa. And on that note, it's time to say good morning to Eranda Ginige. Very good morning to you, Mr. Ginige.
Good morning, Faraz. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's a great honor, actually, to be able to interact with people such as you, and who's taking such a stance. You've written a little note. Anura, were you scraping coconut for 1 year? It's been a year since last year's flood, and some of the displaced are still displaced. Yeah. For 1 long year, you didn't do anything to prepare for this year's monsoon. You failed to organize your ministry and the relevant departments. You failed to coordinate. You failed to analyze. You failed to analyze the geological conditions. You failed to identify the risk zones. You failed to plan for the worst. You failed to inform the people. You failed to evacuate the people. Your people, our people, people who voted for you, people of our country, of which you are a minister. You failed to mobilize the government officers, the thousands of grammar sevaks, the divisional secretaries. Hell, you failed to even designate any safe zones for people to run to. What kind of a disaster management minister are you? Tell us, what kind is he?
Well, he's the kind that he couldn't do his job right. Faraz, the reason why I started this, I wrote this open letter and I started the petition, is because I was really moved. I was shaken by the picture of innocent children being washed ashore, who drowned and who got buried alive in the mud. You know, this is no joke. You know, this is a very, very serious, a dreadful situation, and we cannot take this lightly at all. We remember back in 2015. The Syrian boy Aylan Kurdi's body was washed ashore somewhere in Turkey, and the entire world was shaken, and you know that movement led to even a shake-up in the American politics. So you know, the fact that children are dying in this condition in our country is pathetic. You know, we cannot, as citizens, be complacent about this. So that's very much what actually drove me to write this open letter and request the minister, you know, not as a punishment, you know, not as a revenge or anything. It's to say that this is a very serious job. If you can't do this right, you know, let's get somebody who can do it.
But actually, if Anura Yapa does listen to popular sentiment, which is being highlighted by you and
many others,
do you think that the incoming minister will do any better?
Well, it all depends on who is appointed, right? So you know, the appointing of ministers need to be you know, scientific. You know, these kind of position needs to be filled by people who are capable.
We don't always have many ministers who consistently deliver. You know, I can think of ministers who are actually active on the field. And Sajid Premadasa springs to mind. And he's forever and a day more. He's always out there amongst the people, doing something, providing something. But he's one minister.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I'm not interested in the person, right? This is not about Anura Priyadarshana Yapa. I don't care it is Anura Yapa or Anura Kumar Disanayaka or Bangala Sama, whoever, right? So as a citizen, what we need to see is a capable person in the leadership. And why do I say leadership? Obviously, we can't expect the minister to do all of these things. What we need is a person who can lead, gather a group of people, give the motivation, and have the wanting, the desire, the absolute necessity to make sure that innocent children and people do not die under these kind of dire situations. So that's the type of person that we need. So all we know is what's the kind of person that we need, and we need to pressurize the people who are appointing these people, right, to make sure that that person is appointed, whoever that person may be. But let me add something on that. See, this comes back to us. This comes back to us, the citizens, the voters, right, the people. Because if we are saying that, well, where are the ministers who can deliver, then why haven't we appointed the people who can deliver? These are the people that we appointed, right? So if we feel that none of these people or majority of these people can't really deliver, then we should look back at us and say, hold on, we should appoint people who can actually do these jobs, for us.
The problem is that the people will throw that back and say that, the pool, the pot is the same.
Yeah.
Because it calls for far-reaching changes in the way registered political parties nominate people to go out there and canvass your vote, our vote, my vote, your vote, his vote.
Yes.
Right? So if the pot is full of bad eggs, then
the choices are limited.
Very, very limited choice. In fact, we've only got options choice. We've got no choice, really.
Yes.
Right? So, you're hoping for the best the whole time.
Yeah. I kind of disagree with that, right? Because if we continue to have this debate, and this is not the first time that we've had this conversation, right? We constantly hear this. So it's a chicken and egg situation, right? So you have to stop it at somewhere. You have to break the cycle, the vicious cycle somewhere, right? So if it is a democratic process, if it is a democratic country, the people should have the ability, should have the power to make sure that, if you don't have a choice, then why vote in the first place just out of lack of choices, right? So if we start this conversation, we are going to get sidetracked.
We're going to get sidetracked. Okay, but Honorable, couldn't he have given a really robust heart-to-heart speech at Cancun and then rushed back? Couldn't he have said, look, this is what's happening out in my country, but I'm here because I want to give you firsthand what's going on in my country. We have vast amounts of people displaced, and we need your help. And perhaps he would have had a far better response. And then very suspiciously, of course, he's taken so long to come back to Sri Lanka. And we do wonder why. Our minister took apparently 5 days. I may well be wrong, but
more than 5 days actually. It's over 7 days, and this is something that I bring up in my letter as well. I think the problem is much larger. It is this whole lack of sensitivity. Being so insensitive to the real problems. And the pain and the agony of our own people by our leaders. This is the larger problem, right? And I totally agree with you. And I think what the minister should have done is the right thing that what he should have done is that he should have actually left the instance that he was informed that there can be a disaster like this. In the night of the 23rd, at least. That would have been the right thing to do, because he is, after all, the highest responsible, accountable person for disaster management in Sri Lanka. So his leadership is utmost important to manage the disaster in the country. So he should have definitely left in the first instance, even without speaking at the conference.
Now, what sort of things should we have in place, or we ought to have had in place, which we don't still have, but now we've got, hopefully, a bit of breathing space in which we can do these things. Like what? Like what? What do we need?
Okay, so first of all, people are saying, some people ask me, what can he do? I mean, what can we do? It rains, so it's a natural disaster.
Yeah.
That's not the point, right? The point is, the monsoons have been happening in this piece of land for hundreds of thousands of years. So this is not new, right? It's not a tsunami. A tsunami is something different, right? So we know, if you look at the last 10 years, if you look at the last 20 years, 50 years, we have the records. But unfortunately, our meteorological department does not have this information in the public domain. But fortunately, we have that information in our apps, right? We could instantly see the rainfall in Sri Lanka.
Right. So it's raining. It's raining.
I'll get to that. I know what you want me to. So I was coming to it. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to prepare. Right? Disaster management at least has 3 phases. Right. So you need to prepare, and you need to have a process how to manage during the disaster, and then what to do after the disaster. Yeah. Right? So we can very well expect, by looking at the previous data, that we're gonna have rains during April, May, June. And in December, November, December, in the north side, northeast. So what we need to do is we need to have very simple systems. We need to have trained, prepared the people on how to behave in a situation like that.
How do you let them know?
Well, I mean, all we did was apparently is just have a loudspeaker going around saying, leave. That's not how you get people to leave. That's what you did in, back in the 19th century, right? There are much more advanced systems.
Like sirens.
Like sirens, yeah. I mean, sirens serve a purpose. Sirens are made with that loud, scary voice so that people actually feel. I mean,
we have a clip of one of these things. There we go. So that's a siren.
That's a siren, and the sound.
And it's very loud. I think.
Very loud. Yeah. When you hear that, something is wrong, right? And you feel you have that adrenaline rush, and you tend to take action, right? So what we're talking here is a behavioral change. If people are saying, we told people to leave, but they're not leaving, that's not an answer. So you have to find a way. You have to create a mechanism to get people to
also, somebody in the last week asked me a question, sent us in a question, which you can, by the way. You can. The email address will come up, but if you want to SMS, you can SMS us straight here on 0772 300 305. Whatever the question you have, you can do that. But they asked me this question. Well, people are being asked to leave. Where to?
Exactly. That's the point. So if you're asking people to leave, leave their property in London, people build their homes and their business places with a lot of pain, right? I mean, with a lot of.
But when push comes to shove, and when the authorities ask you to evacuate, you need to evacuate. But the authorities really ought to tell you where to.
Exactly. There need to be designated, pre-identified safe zones and relief centers, and those centers need to be equipped in advance, not during the disaster, in advance with the food. And we are not talking about 10 years of preparation. We're talking about a month or 2 month long preparation before the monsoon.
No, we are merely a private business house, right? And okay, albeit one of Sri Lanka's largest privately held business houses. But if you have a look at our car park just now, there's still people coming in bringing stuff in for onward distribution. But surely the government can't rely on those measures, because those are extraordinary measures, extracurricular, if you like. Surely they could have, in this last 1 year, they could have collected non-perishable items but essential. Things like mats, blankets, that sort of thing.
Sanitary wear.
Sanitary wear. They could
And
have, those are non-perishable.
Yeah.
They don't have a expiry date. And it's shocking that they didn't appear to have.
That's exactly my point, right? There was no preparedness, right? And even so, you know, the relief is something that happens after the disaster.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll accept that, you know, the government alone can't bear the burden of giving so much of relief to these people. The private sector needs to engage. The citizens need to engage. Need to do.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the people doing their bit.
Their bit.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is that the government, the disaster management center, needs to have a really good, well-planned mechanism to make sure that this relief goes to the right people, the right places, at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we need from the government, along with the other material support. So, you know, that's the type of organization, the management that we expect from the government. Because, come on, for us, a ministry is a powerful institution, right? They have the power, they have the authority, they have the resources to make these things happen. That's why we have.
But do they have the commitment?
That's the question. On top of all of this, you need people with commitment. And I would say that, you know, I mean, if this is being watched by people who work at the ministry and the disaster management center, I would like you to ask that question from yourself. Do you have that commitment to really serve your people? Because we're talking about disaster management. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. You know, we need to have the 24 hours of surveillance, and the disaster management center needs to be a well-equipped center where you get all the alerts all the time. You can monitor all the areas.
Yes, so we may have a clip of a control room. We'll see if they'll play that. There we go. This is the sort of thing that they have here.
Yeah. And you know, these kind of technologies are not you know, unbelievably expensive to implement, right? With the technology that we already have, you know, publicly available technologies, we can very well do this. And I'm confident, because I've been working with the corporate sector for a long time. I know there are very much capable people who can develop these kind of systems.
But, you know, I don't want to sound boring and repetitive, but if we look at the amount of money that this government has lost due to fraud and corruption, we can start off with the bond. That's a favorite thing of mine. Yes, I agree. But it's an absolutely true fact. They lost money. The government lost money, right? And the private company made just under 13 billion Sri Lankan rupees. That's a lot of money. In 1 year they made just under 6 billion. In another year they made just over that. And in total just under 13 billion. The compensation on the cancelled Sri Lankan Airlines order is 146 million United States dollars, not rupees. Then they had a deposit of around $54 million, which they were also allowed to keep. So it's an awful lot of money. Do our politicians care? Do they care? What was Anroyapa doing, twiddling his thumbs from 2016 to 2017? From one disaster to the other, in the intervening period. Perhaps he would like to publish on a weekly basis what it is that he and his ministry did in the last 12 months.
I think so. I would think so. And this.
And what about these cars? You know, they've got cars. We're always down to these blessed cars.
Yeah.
Cars and more cars. What happens to the cars that were ordered in Chandrika's time? What happens to the cars that were ordered in Mahinda Rajapaksa's time? So, you know, what happens to these cars? You know, Mercedes-Benz and Toyotas, whatever.
Land Rovers.
Do they only last 5 years or 10 years? What happens? Where are these vehicles? Are they just being parked, abandoned in sheds here, there and everywhere? The next time you go to that place near Pilaus, just look at Mumtaz Mahal, the old speaker's residence. Look at the cars that are parked there, rotting away. Your money, our money, everybody's money, but obviously nobody cares. So if you took all that, surely we have the money.
Well, I don't think it's a money problem at all, right? You know,
it's a commitment problem.
It's a commitment problem. We have enough money. We waste a lot of money. What we need is commitment. And I think in order to make that commitment, we the citizens have a role to play. This is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And just like me, and I'm not using this as an opportunity for me to shine or whatever. That's not my objective, right?
Yeah.
I'm really moved, right? I'm worried.
Where can people sign your petition?
They can sign it online, right?
How do they find it?
Well, they can come to Facebook and search for it. They can go to avaz.com where the petition is hosted, and of course now on your website the link will be published on the Facebook pages as well. So I think if people can find it, you have the technology to do that. I don't believe in wasting paper and running around with wasting resources.
But also, shouldn't the people, in his last speech, in his farewell speech as President of the United States of America, President Obama, he said that the Constitution is only written down. It's just a piece of paper, and unless the people get activated, that will not have life.
Yeah.
So you do need to get out of your comfort zone, your do-nothing seat, and you need to do something, even if it means to send an email, perhaps to the President's office. PS at presidentsoffice.lk. And the disaster management ministry, you can do it to EOC at dmc.gov.lk. They'll come up, and the presidential secretariat email address is ps at presidentsoffice.lk, coming up on your screens shortly. And the disaster ministry is the EOC at dmc.gov.lk. Send them an email. Tell them how strongly you feel. Tell them that Anurayappa should go home, if that's what you feel. Make a difference. Act now. Do it. And is that the kind of action that you want the people to take?
Yes. So, like I said earlier, democracy is not just putting a cross on the ballot paper once in every 4 years or 5 years, right?
Excepting sometimes it's not. It's like every 2 years.
Yeah. Either way, it's not just putting that cross. You can't just pass your responsibility to somebody else and expect things to happen. And when things don't happen, you just go and say, "I'm going to teach a good lesson," and put across to the other side. That's not how it should be working. We, the citizens, have an utmost responsibility to make sure that we hold these people accountable, right? So we appoint them, yes. And we support them. We need to do that as well. Right? We support them to do their job. But if they're not doing their job, then we need to make a voice to our fullest ability as citizens, as groups, to make sure that somebody who can do that job is appointed to that person. So this is not really a personal thing. I haven't really met Anurayappa in my life. I haven't even spoken to him. Right? This is about the position, and this is no joke. This post and the ministry, the portfolio, and the relevant departments need to get their act together, not in the next 3 months, right now. And we don't need consultants coming over, having long meetings and big expensive conferences. No. We have the common sense. We have the people in the country to implement these systems in place.
But they apparently, in some sectors, they're quite innovative. Because if you noticed last week, we had the Gazette notification in the allocation of departments. And if you did notice, the Foreign Minister has now been allocated the National Lotteries Board and the Development Lotteries Board. So obviously we may find an international angle to our lottery tickets, and I'm saying that with a straight face as possible, because you never know, they may be quite innovative. But then it's the world's going crazy, and our allocations of jobs to different ministers is also going a bit potty.
Well, I mean, there are enough and more examples for us, right? So if we start to talk about
what should we do now? We are after this disaster. What should the DMC, the Disaster Management people
The Disaster Management Center needs to have a leader. First of all, I don't know who the hell that person. The person needs to have the knowledge, first of all, right? The ability and the want.
Do you want to head that?
Well, I didn't come here asking for positions. That's not my objective.
No, but I'm asking you.
Well, I mean, if
they say, would you have the necessary skills to do that?
Of course, I mean, without boasting, my master's is in project management, right?
Right.
So I know what I'm talking about. This is not just some random person, rumbling on.
You're not ranting. You're not coming here on Newsline on Pathikan, and you're not ranting.
No, I'm not. I'm talking. I'm everything that I've written here, everything that I've spoken.
Yeah.
It's backed by facts and common sense and
Common sense. Now, I caught one sentence in your petition. It says here, you failed to build a system to track the actual ground level situation. You failed to implement a plan when the worst happens. You failed to build a system to coordinate the relief efforts. You failed, you failed, you failed. Your ministry's website is a disgrace. ICTA, ICTA, before you send balloons up, can you do something useful for a change? Like at least building useful digital tools for critical government ministries. Bravo. Well said, actually. That's true, isn't it?
absolutely.
Where are all our resources being spent?
Yeah.
On what? We had people who spent millions and millions of rupees on some opening scheme. Now, instead of you don't really need all this grand whatever. Yeah. When President Sirisena took over, when he signed his acceptance, apparently he used a 10 rupee pen.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask how many ministers in our cabinet own premium brand pens and whether they paid for it themselves. Yeah? The next time you see the ministers, just have a quick look to see the telltale signs of what kind of pen they use. Is it a 10 rupee pen? I mean, it's a small point, but, it may only be a ball point, but it's a point.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, these are all symptoms, right? What we're talking, like I said, there are enough.
So these are the symptoms. They give away the game.
What we as citizens need to do is engage, participate, right, and continue to have that voice. We can't give up. Now, although I've ended this letter as the disappointed citizen,
yeah.
I'm not a disappointed, passive,
but you're not a disappointed, hopeless citizen.
Exactly.
You have hope.
I have absolute hope. I think we can change this. I think the next generation, as they come into leadership positions, this will change. We can turn around this country. I'm very, very hopeful. I'm hopeful about my generation of people. But for that to happen, all of us need to play our roles, right?
All of us need to send the president an email. And all of us need to send...
At least to start. Yeah, as a start.
At least to let him know that you're thinking about him. You know how tough life is at the top.
Yeah.
And unlike one other thing that people may be frightened of is that if you try and do things, perhaps the minister might end up like John and do a John Amaratunga and shout and scream and rant and rave.
I hope not. I hope not. I think the minister should and will take this as constructive criticism, right? Whether resign or not. I think the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm really, really, stressing this, is that disaster management is a very serious thing, right? And we need to get our act together immediately.
Do you think that people will view your efforts as a manner of trying to change the government, or is it trying to get this government that we elected to deliver upon its promises?
Well, it's rather the latter. I mean, for me, I really don't care which party or which government, which race or religion, whoever this person is. I really don't care.
Yeah.
As a citizen, this is where we need to change. We need to come out of the party politics when it comes to delivery of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whether the person appointed as the minister is from the UNP or the SLFP is not what matters here. What matters is whether this person can deliver this critical mission, right, of disaster management. That's the question that we need to ask. So this is not a political. I know there is a political side.
But these disasters have far-reaching consequences, doesn't it?
Of course.
Children lose their textbooks, their notebooks, and they have to start all over again. This is a great impediment to the progress of our country.
Absolutely. This is in every sense disastrous. It's a very sad time for Sri Lanka, we have to be sensitive to these disasters. We can't just forget them just because Sri Lanka won a match against India or some ridiculous video is shared on Facebook.
Do you think that we ought to be in Sri Lanka a bit mindful of the fact that many years ago Henry Kissinger, the US Foreign Secretary and special press correspondent, if you like, special representative of the US government, Henry Kissinger said that, talking about Bangladesh, he said Bangladesh was an international basket case. But Bangladesh seems to have got their act together.
Yeah.
They have flooding almost every year, and they seem to
have improved hugely.
Yes, they seem to know how to cope. Will it take many more disasters for Sri Lanka to learn?
I would hope not, and I'm saying let's not let that happen. We as citizens, let's take action, right? Let's make sure that our innocent children's lives, at least, because they don't have a voice. The adults can take a decision, but the children can't speak for themselves. So we need to make sure that these disasters don't happen in the next monsoon. The next monsoon is not going to come in May. We can have a torrential rain in December.
It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you, and we do hope that the people will respond in the way that we ought to. In the meantime, thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure, and that's about it from Newsline on Monday, the 12th of June 2017. Take care. God bless.